One day, a tower appeared in the very center of the city, symbolizing the end of the world. It was an apocalypse and a catastrophe as they thought, but the tower addressed them with a call. If they wanted to prevent the fall of humanity, they had to respond. Those who had the power and earned the right to oppose the tower showed interest. They were called Tower Wanderers. A certain object appeared in front of the conquerors fighting the monsters. Revolving stone. Someone decided to take advantage of it, promising to tell everything later, and disappeared. At first, people had only two options: rise or die. But now there is a chance to return. Many travelers took advantage of this opportunity. Returning to the past made it possible to compensate for failures and mistakes, but there were no fewer monsters. What will happen to the present they left behind? The main character made a promise to himself. He'll never come back. In the entire existence of the tower, no one has ever dared to climb to the 99th floor alone. By staying in the present, it will continue to rise, and someone will be able to reap a rich harvest this year. The situation in the world was getting worse. Yellow dust was making it difficult to see a clear sky, but the little girl continued to have fun, seeing how her brother, whom she called a thief, wanted to quietly eat the chips. The news reported that an earthquake was recorded in the vicinity of Seoul. Fortunately, the magnitude was not yet large, and there were no casualties, but monitoring agencies claimed that the fluctuations were gradually increasing. In the middle of the street, amid the screams of people, something began to grow straight out of the ground. Jae-won hid his younger sister in his arms in time. But now another problem arose. In England, Japan, unidentified buildings began to rise all over the world. People nicknamed them the Tower of Nightmares, and some even accepted the call and got inside. They received support for the interface system and became able to acquire skills and items. Just like in the game, people quickly realized that this was far from an illusion. The tower suggested that an impact was about to happen. Inside, it resembled huge halls illuminated by the rays of the sun. Outside, there were only concrete blocks. One day, workers noticed a monster on one of the towers that looked like a man with wings, whose cry called on other monsters to attack people. This was the influence. 1/3 of the population was destroyed by monsters from these unidentified objects. The people inside them could only watch powerlessly. The wanderers were told to rise because this could save their world. They were going to do everything in their power, and everyone believed that capturing the tower would be the end of their nightmares. Those who received special skills became the last hope, and in order to stop the complete extermination of people, the wanderers set out to conquer the tower. Encountering various obstacles, they united into groups, choosing commanders. One day, the wanderers split a cobblestone, inside of which there was a luminous stone. It helped users turn back time and return to the moment of summoning to the tower, while the memory would remain intact. Of course, this seemed like some kind of cheating, but Hwang In-chan, the commander, took the courage to try it, and he really disappeared. But will the wanderer be able to return again? Sakamoto, a former scientist, decided that Hwang In-chan had definitely returned to the past of this world. However, due to time differences, they will not be able to meet. The current situation is a state in which the temporal branches of the universe have been divided, which means the world has been divided. The team members knew for sure. Hwang In-chan had gone back in time, but despite this, the present of this world had not changed. Samakoto named only a hypothesis, but did not exclude the possibility that all people who used the stone fell into the same time period. The objects in the towers went beyond everyone's understanding, and in the meantime, a second influence of the tower occurred. While humanity on Earth had not yet been destroyed, the wanderers had to make a choice: use the stone and return to the past, or stay inside the tower and die. There was no hope left. So many gave up and used turnstones. One after another, they returned to the past. But not him. There were people who did not rely on stones and wanted to protect the present. A suicide squad called Carpe Diem. Jae-won made a mistake. In the next fight, his companion Yun-hwan rushed into battle with the monster. The men, through the efforts of both, managed to cope with it, trying not to leave any dead. Fortunately, the wounded could recover faster if they simply rested. The Carpe Diem squad moved so fast that the guys could soon reach the top floor. They did not lose hope and were happy to see each other safe and sound, especially Jae-hwan. The commander discovered the sword of a real dragon on the 85th floor. Such a powerful weapon came at a very opportune time. Just like Yun-hwan said, maybe they will actually be able to reach the top floor, although Jae-hwan only assumed that everything would go smoothly. The 98th floor flaming jade room took most of the lives. Everything was in vain, all the tests that they managed to pass. The main character refused to believe that they could die so pitifully. The decisive moment was the unexpected maneuver of Yun-hwan, who tried to defeat the boss of the 98th floor. The man couldn't have done it alone, so he asked Jae-hwan for help. As a result, the guy did not have time to dodge the blow from the horn and was seriously wounded. Being the last one left more or less capable, Jae-hwan was blinded by the desire for revenge. Gathering his last strength, he attacked the enemy, noticing the glow. The dragon was defeated, and its body gradually began to take the form of lava, covering the bodies of its victims. The commander of the suicide squad called out to his partner, whose working stone had darkened. Kim Yun-hwan never lost his smile in this cruel tower, so the wanderers nicknamed him the Smiling Knight. And for the first time, this warrior lost his zest. Jae-hwan couldn't believe that the guy wanted to take the chance to go back, but it was already too late. The commander was much stronger than his friend thought. Probably for this reason, the wanderer became confident that he would be able to go through the last floor of the tower. The world is lucky that such a person existed. From now on, Jae-hwan will move on his own. On the top floor, there were permafrost lands, where an ice monster was already waiting for. The likeness of a lion ordered the enemy to surrender. Seeing that he was wounded, Jae-hwan laughed it off, which really infuriated the boss. He managed to hide in a cave, which allowed him to see the figure of a creature that had arrived on the 99th floor 10 years ago. The threat he faced here could not be compared to anything. Velkisos belched an icy stream of magic in search of his prey, while the protagonist healed himself. If it were not for the objects of other wanderers that he managed to find, he would have been dead long ago. The real dragon sword from the 85th floor, Yun-hwan's ice armor, and the Fire King's bracelet from Han Soyul. Jae-hwan believed that if he were stronger, he would have saved her. Interrupting the flow of thoughts, the main character became noticeably upset, assuring himself that this time he would be able to pass. He will be accompanied by the blacksmith Atopos J. Now he was in a village founded after the destruction of the dragon Altaminos, the boss of the 50th floor. More and more dead and wounded were added to Atopos every day, but this did not take away hope from the people. The priests organized a rescue group that searched for and rescued those unable to fight, and the blacksmiths, to help the wanderers, repaired the equipment for free. But now, there are none of them left, except Jay. However, the only client he had was Jae-hwan. Moreover, recently there have been almost no supplies of materials from the lower floors, although a couple of months ago there were deliveries of minerals, and all because there are few survivors left in this tower. Jae-hwan had no idea what year it was in their world. There had been more than 10 tower influences before today, and at some point, people stopped appearing on the first floor. What if the entire population of the Earth has already died? Jay asked if his interlocutor had noticed anything strange while wandering around the floors. As it turned out, in the place where the turning stone was found, there was a strange inscription. A tower inside a tower. A nightmare. Inside a nightmare. Jay shared that Grandma Hiron disappeared a day ago. People did not age in the tower, so someone's disappearance could only be explained by two things. Either the person went back in time or jumped from the tower. Hiron and Jay are one of the few auxiliary class wanderers. Perhaps that's why Jae-hwan asked the blacksmith to teach him the skill. Now, the boss of the icy lands said that in the entire existence of the tower, no one had ever dared to climb to the 99th floor alone. The dragon recognized him as an outstanding person, which caused vague feelings in Jae-hwan himself. Now he felt sorry for killing the monster. However, Velkisos himself still did not want to say goodbye to life. even despite the vaunted armor, which began to gradually crumble. The games are over. The main character fought to the end, but even so, as the enemy assured, he would not be able to hold out for long. He still can't escape his fate. In the end, only loneliness and emptiness will await. Jae-hwan thought the boss was quite talkative, so his tricks didn't work. Was this power really just a sham? The dragon insisted on the surrender of this man, who definitely would not have won with such skills. But the main character began exploring the tower later than other walkers, and therefore missed his chance to gain hidden skills, a hidden class and other advantages. For this reason, he decided to abandon the accumulation of various skills and focus on only one. Lunge after lunge. Jae-hwan killed so many monsters that he himself could be called that. This ability changed him. As a result, the guy became more accurate, stronger, and faster. Because of this, falling out is no longer just a skill. Its attack power reached the level of hidden skills. Moreover, it could be used without spending energy. Now Jae-hwan hit Velkisos so many times and only left a few scratches. It was already too late to dodge. But this light, the main character saw something similar on the previous floor. In that case, it was worth a try. The blow to this point was still not the last, but the guy wanted to chop off this monster's entire jaw. The ice dragon gathered its last strength and decided to strike with all its might, attacking from the air. Now Jae-hwan has no chance of winning, but if there were 10 people like him here, they could defeat Velkisos. If humanity had not been deceived by the Nightmare Stone, they would have been able to avoid their fate. The main character learned new information, and therefore deliberately dodged the blow and left the hall. A little more, and he would have met his death. 5 years later, Jae-hwan received a new title, Conqueror of the 99th floor, which is the maximum level. However, according to the dragon himself, the man already knew the answer to his question. The whole truth was supposed to be revealed on the top floor. The wanderer dropped the sword of the ice dragon, after which a giant passage appeared in the form of a black liquid. After passing through the portal, he found himself in the control room. At this point, there was a view of the entire tower, the summoning room, and Atophus. It was like they were being watched. Jae-hwan was greeted by an unfamiliar voice. Someone was waiting for the guy to return to the village, and then look here. He just give a little time to prepare. The interface system congratulated the main character, calling him the first to complete the tutorial of World 294. This achievement will be forever recorded in the eternal library of the Akashic Chronicles. Of course, he was shocked by such words. However, the voice simply does not take everything to heart, otherwise the flow of feelings will drown it. However, it was already too late. Unexpectedly for the stranger, Jae-hwan quickly came to his senses, and therefore was confused and forgot to introduce himself. Still, no one managed to reach level 100 alone. In front of him stood the demon Bistrain, the owner of the Tower of Nightmares that he had just passed through. But if the main character only completed the tutorial, does that mean there was a main game? The demon deigned to show something. Memories of the members of the Carpe Diem squad, including Soyul, about how the group had just begun to form. These are the faces Jae-hwan will never see again. Bistrain personally had no idea about this, but when he watched the tragic future, he even cried when he saw the death of these people. Does the main character remember those feelings? Sadness? Rage? Regret? Of course they will stay with him forever. In that case, the demon was going to give him a second chance. A chance to start this game from the very beginning. This could only happen in a novel, but now Jae-hwan could repeat everything and retain the memories. But weren't they supposed to save the world by going through the tower? So it was a deception. From the very beginning, it was impossible to stop the influence of the tower. And all this time, they have been fighting against something that cannot be defeated. The savior of mankind was never meant to appear, but Jae-hwan had no intention of going back in time. The demon burst into laughter as the human needed more explanation. In this tower, no object can be sent back in time. This is exactly what Velkisos was talking about. It was not a stone of return, but a stone of nightmares. People using it are stuck in a terrible nightmare. Before the 77th etude, the demon could not even imagine that there was a race so obsessed with returning to the past. Only humanity could be so stubborn. The tutorial ended, and it was time to start a new game, but the main character refused. He understood the essence of this tower. Jae-hwan was already in a nightmare. This meant that if the Wanderer killed Bistrain, he would be able to move to the next floor. The demon insisted that it did not exist since they were at the top. But fortunately, the main character did not believe a single word of this monster. Bistrain called it a strong desire to receive a reward, and therefore asked what this man wanted. He promised to give everything that Jae-hwan deserved, but he did not even plan to return to his world. The tower was just a nightmare, which meant nothing had happened outside. This is exactly what the boss of the 100th floor showed. The Wanderer finally began to understand that no one died, which seemed impossible. More importantly, the patients were still unconscious. Many years have passed in the world of the tower, but in the present it is only a month. As Bistrain said, the warrior would not be able to gain the upper hand, since the demon was more than just a tutorial. That is, there was a difference between them, like between a man and a dragon. Although Jae-hwan didn't attach much importance to it, since he had already killed a dragon once, the main character returned to Jae, who did not respond for a long time. As it turned out, the guy had challenged that guy to a fight 72 times already, and couldn't even land one blow. However, for some reason, the boss himself was not going to kill the man. Bistrain saw in him a special product that would fetch a good price. Manufacturers had to ensure that the product would survive safely on the Great Earth, thanks to a two-stage processing process. In the first stage, the best seeds were eliminated. It was thanks to tutorials that one could find good ones. In the main game, the selected seeds will begin to bloom wildly. In other words, in the second treatment, water and fertilizer were provided to the high-value sprouts. In this same situation, there was a seed that refused to grow. But what if we just kill him? Death in the tower did not mean that the soul would die, but it could deteriorate. Then the collectors will definitely not leave the demon alone. All he had to do was raise Jae-hwan well and sell him. And then Bistrain would become a high-class demon, but he still had to pay off the debt for buying the tower. Even the gods wanted to buy this guy, even though they didn't work with the demon world. Therefore, he practically begged the person to agree to switch to the main game. Bistrain used all sorts of tricks and attacked from behind. He no longer had enough patience, and promises to give hidden skills or items fell out on their own. However, for Jae-hwan, this monster was just another boss. Although, he was waiting for this very moment. The demon revealed the secret about the coexistence of many different universes, which the guy already knew about. On Earth, everyone studied the theory of multiverses and parallel universes. Bistrain explained that there was a main dimension called the Great Earth. The protagonist's land was just a subworld that existed among the rest. His planet was called World 294. Thanks to the Tower of Nightmares, walkers upgraded their skills, accumulated items, and got used to the Great Earth system, getting a chance to go to a new world. Demons like Bistrain watched over the game and influenced its course. This part was no longer very interesting, so the monster moved on to the part that said why the tower appeared. Why exactly was Jae-hwan and his humanity destined for such a fate? The stranger interrupted his monologue and demanded an answer to another question. Why exactly did Bistrain control the Nightmare Tower? Will he really receive some kind of reward for this? The demon compared it to charity, but Jae-hwan refused to believe it. Some of the monster's friends simply quietly watched the walkers, while others could intervene and help their favorites. Even so, everything seemed crazy. Returning to the 99th floor, the main character examined his own characteristics. There was nothing left for him to promote, but even so, he couldn't win. It seems that this was the limit for all people, perhaps the system of this world. At these words, a strange feeling appeared in Jae-hwan's body, and then the picture began to take on a different appearance. It was as if everything around was an illusion. The hand reached out to the golden clots of energy that were spinning in the air and looked like pieces of sticky sugar. taking on more and more new forms. Then J1 instinctively realized that they were part of any world, which means it didn't matter what form they took. But the words about volunteering seemed ridiculous. Who was the owner of the manufacturers? Beastrain explained that they were the names of the rulers of the great land. The winners of the main game could go there and receive special patronage from the hosts. A person's future will have to change depending on which patron he chooses. The demon clung closer, promising to help with choosing a candidate, only if the product agrees to participate in the main game. Beastrain looked like a pushy salesman for some company. J1 finally gave his consent. In exactly 10 days, he was going to leave this place. 9 days later, the guy was doing exactly the same thing as always. By training, there was very little left, especially since the demon had spent too much of his patience. He regretted that he had followed the nightmares and bought this tower, and blamed some deceivers for this. They said that the tower was built by a nightmare master, and that this oldest building was from the first generation of development. Of course, if this was a third-generation building, it would have been possible to complete the tutorial without damaging the product. And in this trash from the first generation, Beastrain could not do anything without the consent of the person. Poverty, even in the demon world, was the worst thing imaginable. And tomorrow, everything will end. The system provided hints before the start of the main game and summary information about the Great Land. The Game Master wanted to finish the tutorial, which meant that J1 would be allowed to return to World 294 without losing his memory. All that remained was to agree. But the main character armed himself with a sword and hit his interlocutor, intending to kill him. After the particles became visible, he found it difficult to lunge while throwing a punch. It was as if something was stopping him. It was as if a new feeling had awakened inside. Maybe this was the taste of life. The demon used the plants of the 91st floor to build a wall between the opponents. This was the first time Beastrain had seen someone like J1. However, it would have been easier for both of them if the Wanderer had done this from the very beginning. The main character was shackled by forest roots, which is why it will now be difficult to finish the game. However, the monster has not given up to hear voluntary consent for a long time. It was his turn to ask questions. He was curious about the Wanderer's opinion as to why this tutorial continued. The Tower of Nightmares automatically closed the game 100 days after the end of the tutorial. So Beastrain could simply leave the guy here, and he would quietly move on to the main part. He must have been called a flattering gentleman on the Great Land. J1 added that the demon lived for 784 years and visited 128 worlds, all the while selecting and killing walkers. Is it really true that he wanted to hand over the Wanderer to a collector under the name of the Black Lord? J1 is a commodity cultivated by Beastrain himself for several decades, although this was already in the past. The new battle took on a more fierce look, so much so that the demon's facial expressions did not hide his fear. The main character finally managed to injure his opponent. Apparently J1 has become super adapted. On the first day after reaching the 100th floor, he began to doubt that the tower was also part of the nightmare, and why the monster simply could not kill him. Doubt that this is the limit for all people. At that moment, these small particles began to gather into bizarre messages. And after so many doubts, when the main character had nothing to think about, he realized the attack. All restrictions applied were lifted, and Beastrain was no longer held back. It took extraordinary talent to master the second level of adaptation immediately after completing the tutorial, but J1, in his opinion, was still a stupid person. Is it really going to end this way? Taking the gift from the 99th floor, the Wanderer rose to his feet, while the enemy was chatting about how the main game would begin itself, and the man himself was only getting worse from his stubbornness. At the moment of the attack, J1 noticed a bug, which made the demon realize that he was not just adapting. A bright glow appeared around, which could already be seen on the previous floors. This is an awakening. People were not so weak as to become ordinary pawns. They are not just a commodity that you can bid on and sell at a higher price to whomever you want. J1 refused to follow the path they had prepared, so he planned to go to the next floor, intended to go higher and higher until the world came to an end. The pitiful part of Beastrain begged for this torment to stop. since the next floor simply did not exist. But everything was just the opposite. On the 78th floor, 66th floor, there were strange messages throughout the tower. At 47, it was said that the tower was just an imitation of the primordial nightmare that stood at the top of the Tree of Illusion. These were the notes of Mullark, the creator of the tower. This place is only the root of the Tree of Illusions, which means that there was also a trunk. If the main character makes his way to the top, he will achieve his goal. At this point, the tutorial temporarily closed because a bug was discovered. The game cleanup failed and the tutorial ended. Jae-hwan finally found it. In a new place, a flock of predators was already waiting for, and even a small attack was enough for him. A larger target appeared behind them. However, the monsters here turned out to be somewhat weak. Suddenly, the main character's attention was attracted by unusual creatures who were surprised by the appearance of a man. Even with suspicion turned off, it was difficult to make out anything. Jae-hwan realized that they needed the horn, so he offered to make a deal. However, these intelligent monsters went on the offensive. The stranger threatened that if they did this again, he would have no choice but to simply kill them all. In the end, only one remained alive. Sitting down from above, the man demanded answers to his questions. Unable to endure such humiliation, the creature bit off its own tongue. Jae-hwan thought that they would refuse with the next insects, but these insects had an unbending will. He failed to find out something, so he decided to look for something useful in their pockets. A small backpack of measurements caught my eye, containing 2 cubic meters of space. Just in time. On the Great Earth, this was apparently used everywhere, so, well, at least suspicion showed information about the objects. The main character also found a soul stone that increases spiritual energy. What if these monsters are local jewelers? Either way, these things could come in handy. From the rest, Jae-hwan noticed a map. Somewhere in the distance, a group of people were confidently hunting monsters. The girl with scarlet hair mistakenly threw a dagger at her partner, which is why he, although angry, forgave her. A 2-horned creature appeared behind them, causing the guys to run away. Jae-hwan guessed that the heroine was the strongest in the group. If this continued, the team could die, so it was strange that they passed the Nightmare Tower. A man with the same scarlet curls activated the breath of the King of Fire, after which the girl offered her help. As a result, his face was stained with blood, and the monster was killed by Jae-hwan's hand. The guys brazenly begged to take the corpse of the 2-horned man, since his horns were valuable. Usually, it took a minimum of 10 walkers to catch him, and previously, the main character killed a monster with 5 horns. The stranger was curious who stood in front of her. She couldn't believe that in the chaos, there would be someone capable of killing the 2-horned one with just 1 lunge, but the guy didn't even know what chaos was. Jae-hwan explained to his new acquaintances that he was just passing by and didn't even know the local language. The language barrier was considered very rare, and therefore it seemed strange to the guys that he would just give away the monster's corpse. The heroine failed to use the skill, and therefore she was unable to find even a drop of information. Judging by the guy's spiritual strength, he was not an adapter. She did not believe that in the chaos there was someone capable of killing the 2-horned one with a lunge, and therefore demanded an explanation. Although Jae-hwan didn't understand anything, the girl decided that she had simply used words that were too complex for him. But he remembered who he was and where he came from. His old life lost meaning after coming to the tower, where he was able to make new friends and create new memories. However, after leaving the tutorial, they also dissipated like an illusion. Most likely, his friends now lived on Earth, but if one of the rewards was preserving memory, then they probably no longer remembered either Jae-hwan or what happened in the tower. He lied that he didn't remember anything, but the Scarlet Warrior refused to fall for such a stupid excuse. However, the guy did not say that he had amnesia. Someone called him strong from the abyss, after which Jae-hwan took the spirit weapon, which made the girl convinced that he was not strong, but simply had a cool weapon. He also showed it so openly in front of everyone. All the warriors considered this bragging and stupidity. They, like hawks, watched for new prey that interfered with their mission. But the heroine believed that she could handle it herself. She had an idea, so she suggested something. She introduced herself as Mino, and then talked about the chaos, walking through her companions. These guys were ruthless members of the Red Fox clan, and in short, Mino wanted Jae-hwan to kill them all. It soon became dark, and the team decided to set up camp. Studying the map, the main character noted that there was a village nearby, but still lay down and relaxed. The second level of awakening, awareness, helped to hear how those guys assessed the low level of his spiritual power. They believed that Jae-hwan defeated the two-horned one thanks to a powerful spirit weapon that could only be obtained in the abyss, a branch of the Tree of Illusion. The main character decided that they were coming up with a plan. He was curious to see their reaction when the strangers learned that the Wanderer had actually pulled out a weapon from the root. Although the Tower Demon said that this sword was considered mediocre, it was apparently highly valued here. Besides, this place was not like the Great Lands. Jae-hwan felt them approaching, but continued to lie quietly, which made Mino noticeably nervous. He admitted that he gave his sword to one of the sentries, which made the other members of the team think that they had an advantage, although it didn't matter to the Red Fox clan whether that guy had a weapon or not. The new commander ordered to kill these two and return back. Jae-hwan, noticing his angry friend, was glad to see her real abilities. The opponents went on the offensive, but Mino easily repelled their blows. Moreover, she continued to be sarcastic and apologize, saying that she had gone too far with force. Now the guys have to find out something truly terrible. Redhead suspected that when the girl accidentally unleashed monsters on them, she was the Witch of Destruction. Who needed the services of an assassin from the Dark Forest? However, it didn't matter now. The clan members killed many new adapters with their own hands, so the chaos was full of people who wanted them dead. The commander would never believe that the Dark Forest agreed to harness these weaklings, which means it was a personal request. He was going to kill the witch right here. Was this guy really hoping to fight an assassin with a spirit weapon? Apart from him, the man came prepared. Mino assessed the guys at the first stage of adaptation, but there were many more of them. The redhead brought backup with him, since his opponents were a witch and a man who easily killed the two-horned one. Although if he knew that Jae-hwan would just give up his weapon, then he would not have to call the master the Black Fox. Apparently, he had a lot of free time. Clanter was at stage 3 of adaptation. He gathered half the clan to kill only one Witch of Destruction. What an honor. Mino doubted that she could defeat him in a duel, so she turned to Mr. Memory Loss, regretting that she wouldn't be able to protect him. She threw the Nightmare Stone at him and ordered him to run, adding that with the help of the Displacement Stone, he would end up in the nearest citadel. It became even more interesting. If the item had ended up in their hands then, what would have happened to Yun-hwan now? However, Mino, like him, was not eager to return to the past. She hadn't had the easiest life, but even so, she would have preferred to die. With one swing of his sword, the main character killed several opponents at once. Clunter used 14 Fire King flashes, but using the Oblivion flash, Jae-hwan reached the Black Fox in an instant. Feeling his own demise approaching, the redhead fell to his knees and held out his spirit weapon as the rest of the clan rushed away. Having taken his, Jae-hwan used a small lunge and showed only a small part of his abilities. Mino was wrong. The man in front of her was insanely strong. Who is he? Has she really forgotten? Mino knew the answer, so the main character assumed that the girl had lost her memory. The witch demanded the return of the homecoming stone, to which Jae-hwan pretended to have lost it. Now he had peace of mind. Meanwhile, the girl continued to get angry and search her friend's personal belongings. Mino really knew that Jae-hwan was a human just like her. However, this was enough. The witch finally calmed down. She wondered if it was true that Jae-hwan didn't remember anything about chaos or the Great Earth. Moreover, Mino was jealous that he did not have these memories. Most locals would agree with her, since everyone knew how they got here. Very soon, the main character will hear how this happened, and then he will regret asking. The couple found themselves near the Gorgon stronghold, the city. The square reminded the wanderer of a place where he was summoned from the first floor of the tower, after which he saw people. He knew when such an expression appeared on people's faces. Now Jae-won has learned how Mino fell into chaos. This was the world of the dead, whose name is Chaos. So, if a person died on the Great Earth, he ended up in this place. The witch gave a positive answer, adding that death in this world became the end. Then people in white uniforms appeared. One of them ordered everyone to be lined up and taken to the auditorium. His name was James. The man was surprised that Mino came to the northern checkpoint. The girl decided to use her connections and asked to let her through as soon as possible. Only the situation had changed. Now everyone who entered the citadel had to present a certificate. She was afraid that her friend could not have it at all. Then there was only one thing left. She peacefully lied that she had left a certificate, so she offered to solve the issue in a different way. For example, with the help of a two-horned horn. Luckily, James turned out to be incorruptible, but he still demanded to see the certificate from Jae-won. The girl suggested that he could simply ask his friend for help, but Mino felt something strange. It was as if the Wanderer wanted to kill all the guards and go inside. No matter how crazy he was, it was dangerous to even think about it. Mino quickly intervened, trying to calm the situation. Just at that moment he arrived. The main man in the entire Gorgon citadel, the most honest guard in all the chaos, the captain of the Northern Passage, the stubborn Carlton, who demanded that James report the situation. Upon learning that Jae-won wanted to go inside without having a certificate with him, the man refused. Carlton explained that if a person did not have documents confirming his identity, the guard had the right to use force to prevent passage into the citadel. This was stated in the code. Miro was afraid that now they would not be able to get out of the problem. Jae-won broke the magical shackles, saying that he did not care about these laws, since he did not even know what was written in this certificate. Moreover, the main character did not need him, since he was not going to confirm himself. Carlton was trying to figure out why the law didn't work on this guy. Referring to an article of the criminal code, he decided to arrest the Wanderer and tied him up with chains. However, they were unable to restrain the stranger. Jae-won asked to do the same as his girlfriend, who gave a bribe. Except here, everyone was an accomplice in the crime. The main character threw something to Carlton and asked him to let him pass. James decided to intervene and objected. This was not required. Jae-won was already expected as a green envoy.